I wake up this morning with a feeling of immense sadness weighing on my chest. And the reason why I'm sharing this video with you is because throughout the years, many of you have been telling me that my sharings from my own experience have helped you heal yourself. So I woke up with this immense sadness weighing on my chest. And of course, the first question was, where is this coming from? Why am I experiencing this sadness? What is the cause? And then I remembered my own teaching, and of course I applied it because I walk my talk. And I noticed how the mind came in to try to justify the sadness, to explain the sadness. It is happening because of that and that and that. And then I remember that the story only brings about more story and more questions. And it is not the go-to. It is not the way to go when you want to heal emotional suffering. So I gently let go of the story while I was still very aware, very present to my experience, and seeing how the mind would continue to come in to find justifications for what I was feeling. It was quite a spectacle, actually. But when you are very aware, very awake to what is happening inside of you, you can easily distinguish the mind from the actual experience. The mind comes in with explanations, with a train of thought, with arguments, with scenarios. Whereas the actual sheer experience of the sadness in the body was just a sensation of weight on my chest. So I let go of the story and I went to the sensation. What helped in letting go of the story was, of course, the teaching, but also the understanding that the fact that sadness came in, which then my mind labeled as depression, it felt like a deep depression. The fact that it came in and I am experiencing it does not mean anything bad about myself. It doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong. It doesn't mean I am not good at my self-realization process. It doesn't mean that I'm not good at my emotional healing process. It doesn't mean anything bad. What it means is that I've opened up more so that these parts of me, in this case deep sadness, have now enough space to come to the surface, to be fully seen and fully received, fully welcomed. So these are parts of ourself that are coming to be seen. So it felt like such a deep experience. On one hand, it felt like I am deeply meeting myself in these parts of myself that still feel or hold sadness. So that felt deeply intimate, deeply sweet and loving. On the other hand, I felt I had to sacrifice. It did feel like a sacrifice. The beliefs and the labels that I had about the sadness that came out. And this is always going to be a challenge for us on the self-realization path. Sacrificing or surrendering our thoughts and emotions to the presence of awareness. Because this is exactly what my experience was about. So this is what I am actually sharing with you right now. So I gently let go of the story, of the thoughts that came to interpret, to label the experience, and I went to the sheer experience, and what I found was just a sensation in the area of my chest, like a weight on my chest. And when I went, so to speak, closer to it, as the awareness with which I was aware of my experience, I just discovered a sensation, a sensing of some sort of a vibration that the story was interpreting as sadness. And the emotion of sadness came from that interpretation, from that conclusion, from that belief that the thought was adding to the actual experience that was the weight on my chest. But without the story, that did not feel hurtful anymore. It did not feel painful. It was just a simple sensation, even a neutral one. So I just sat with that sensation of deep desperation, even though throughout this process of just simply sitting and being the awareness that is aware of the sensation on my chest, the mind would come in, trying to steal the show, so to speak, trying to justify, to explain, to bring in its own story about that particular sensation that the mind labeled as sadness. So I sat with this vast, it felt like big sensation of sadness, weight on my chest. I sat with it for as long as it was necessary until I felt it started to just dissolve. I breathed breath into it, emptiness and love. I just felt how love came in powerfully and so gently and sweetly, spontaneously, to welcome this part, this fragment of myself that still held that belief, I am sad. And this sadness had some nuances. I'm just gonna tell you about them, not because I want to reinforce the story, but just as an example. And the sadness was about people in this world who are not living their life happily. And of course, it is a matter of empathy, and I do feel sadness about that, but that sadness does not have to bring me down, does not have to define who I am. So I am talking about relieving ourselves from identification with the emotions, in this case sadness, that we are feeling, so that can always know ourselves to be ourself, to be the presence of awareness that is aware of the experience and that is actually the experience itself. So as I sat with it and really allowed myself to be fully with this sadness without having any agenda of getting rid of it or making it go away or annihilate it, just simply receiving it as a part of myself that needs loving attention, that needs being received as it is. Many other nuances have been unfolding in this process for me to understand about myself and how these layers of contractions in the body, in this case this massive sadness, are sitting there as parts of ourself that still hold a sense of separation. So it's the separate self that is lodged in the body, that is kept captive, if you will, or it is made out of these contractions, this separateness sense that come from these beliefs, plus the sensation that is felt in the body, which gives rise to the emotion. So just by simply being with the sheer experience minus the story is what is going to relieve these contractions, because you just by being the love of awareness that you are, they feel fully accepted and they will integrate back into yourself as an integral part, come back home into wholeness, in other words, dissolve that contraction, that sense of separation, and that is how you heal emotional trauma traces in the body. So in order to be able to do the healing in this most pure, direct way, you need to be able to let go of the story completely and only focus on what you feel, what is your experience of that in your body. Because anytime there is an emotion coming up, you will be able to trace it in the body, and that will allow you to be present, to be the presence of awareness within which that sensation appears and is received fully, welcomed lovingly, so that it can return back to wholeness, so that it no longer holds a sense of separation, a sense of contraction, of isolation. So the challenge is to let go of the story and to surrender your thoughts and emotions to the presence of awareness. These challenges are always going to be there because these layers in the body are, many of them, ancient, and it takes time for them to come up, to be released. You can also invite them. You can also check your own experience. Look at your life and see what is lacking or what is a theme that is prevalent, and see what kind of suffering might be there around that issue. Let's say abundance. You can check for scarcity in your body, fear of scarcity, poverty mindset, fear of financial failure or not being successful enough, guilt about having money. There are many nuances that can be related, and the way that you can check is by just simply formulating those in your mind and see the response that you feel in the body. If you feel a contraction when, for example, you say, I'm afraid of being poor, or I'm afraid of losing my money, I'm afraid of not being able to support myself, I'm afraid of not being able to pay the rent. You get the idea. That is how you enunciate that in your mind. It doesn't have to be out loud, and then you go and feel the reaction in the body. And if there is a contraction there, then you can go about healing it in the way that I just presented here. And that is how you relieve the body of these trauma traces, of these contractions, and return the body to its inherent luminosity and transparency as infinite awareness. You keep the body light and bright as luminous consciousness. So I hope this gives you hope This gives you a new, purer, simpler perspective on emotional healing or healing emotional suffering. It's just so incredibly sweet and deep and intimate to be able to be with yourself in this way that is completely receiving all of these parts of yourself that are coming up to be received with complete love and acceptance, so that they can be integrated back into yourself as a whole. If you would like to deepen your understanding on this process, of course, in order to be able to do this, you first need to know yourself, to establish, to have the felt understanding in direct experience of yourself as infinite awareness, to stand as ever-present, inherently peaceful, infinite awareness when you do this emotional suffering process, healing process, but you don't actually do anything. It's just a way of saying, because what you do is just be the presence of awareness. Be aware of whatever comes up as a separate part that feels itself to be separate. Separation never exists. It is held in place by a belief. That's all there is to separation. It's consciousness holding a belief that keeps that part separate. So if you want to go deeper into this and learn how to stand as infinite awareness and then go about your healing of your emotional suffering, I invite you to join us in the Academy of Being. We begin the academic year in 2025, February. Registration is already open. You can go to the link below this video to sign up if you are someone who is stumbling, fumbling, feeling stuck or confused or unclear about your realization process. This is a place where you receive everything in one place, everything that you need, all the understanding and the tools that are necessary and sufficient in the most simple way for your self-realization process, so that you can navigate it with clarity, with confidence, and with certainty. I welcome you to join us. I hope to see you there. Thank you.